As a software developer, you might have already encountered this kind of situation. So imagine you want to write a test for a new class, and right in the middle of coding you realize that there is this one library that hinders you from writing a test for a method. So what do you do in this case? Today I want to show you how to minimize untestable code and to improve maintainability of your app. So let's go. Hey devs, Adrian here with codequality.rocks. Here we want you to help write cleaner and more maintainable code. On this channel we are talking about everything regarding software architecture and software quality, mainly focusing on .NET and Azure. So imagine you are writing tests for an already implemented feature, and when writing, you realize that the business logic is tightly coupled to the framework component. This can be anything from UI component up to a asynchronous method call, for example. And this component is usually impossible to test. So what's the solution here? There are, of course, different ways to tackle those issues, but today I want to show you how you can use a specific pattern to extract the business logic out of this untestable component. But before we go to that, I want to answer the question, what does untestable code even mean? In essence, it means that you cannot write automated code tests. That means, for example, unit tests or integration tests for a function of your app because it is tightly coupled to a component or a library that is out of your control. This can be, as mentioned, a GUI component, or that your business logic is called inside an asynchronous method, for example. Or you are calling directly a third-party library, which is untestable in this case. So now that you know what untestable code even means, the question is, how can you make the untestable code testable again? There are, of course, different patterns out there, but today I want to focus on one specific pattern, the so-called humble object pattern. You will find endless articles and videos out there in the internet about it, or you can also go to our website codequality.rocks and check out the humble object pattern there. But what does the humble object pattern even mean? In short, it means that you extract the business logic out into a separate method which is testable. And so in the end, you decouple the business logic from its environment. And that's basically it. So that's it for the theoretical part. Let's jump right into the code and see how we can make untestable code testable again. Alright, as you can see here, we've got a class called SomeService. It's just a basic example to show the humble object pattern. It contains a method called createSuperheroAsync, and it contains the business logic, and it is also tightly coupled with an async call and a file system call. We save the information which we add to the queue called hero queue to a file with the method append all lines async. The issue is, as I said, due to the tight coupling, it's very difficult to test this class. It is possible, but it's not so easy. And we are dependent on the thread sleep call, and we are also dependent on the file system. And if something is, for example, if it's not possible to save a file, then it's very, very difficult to let this unit test pass. If you even want to write a unit test, but in this case, it wouldn't even be a unit test. It would be more like an integration test. So if we really want a unit test, we need to extract the business logic out of this method. And So what I want to do here is create a new service called superhero creator handler or hero creator handler, and it simply contains the business logic, and we inject an interface of this new handler or service into this some service class. Very simple. And for that we create now the interface and the corresponding class. The interface, let's say it's called hero creator handler, and the iHero creator handler contains just one method, create heroes, and the method contains a parameter called heroes, which is simply the list. So we want to submit the list from the some service class, and the list contains all the heroes. The filtering and the business logic is then done in this method, and we return a queue of heroes. So we want to implement, of course, this method, and for that I create a class called hero creator handler. It implements the interface, and the easiest way now to implement the business logic is just to copy paste the implementation from the some service into the hero creator handler. Usually you wouldn't do that, but it's just a fast track right now. And as you can see, it's still the same. There's no difference in the business logic. We simply extracted it into another class. And we additionally added a queue into the method, because if you remember, the queue was actually a private member of the some service class, as you can see here. And the list is also still in the some service class. So then we actually have everything regarding the business logic inside the hero creator handler, and we can now remove the business logic from the create superhero async method. And after that we can also remove the hero queue private member from the some service class. So the only thing that is left now is we need an instance of the newly created handler to call the create heroes method. So we can leverage from the new functionality and from the filtering and the business logic, so to say. And for that we use constructor injection, and we inject the interface of the iHero creator handler into the some service class, and then in the end we simply call the create heroes, and the heroes that are initialized in the constructor are simply injected into the method as a parameter, into the create heroes method, of course. And we end up with a fairly simple create superheroes async method. It's just 2 lines. It's kept very simple and also very clean. The entire some service method is just getting now a thin adapter layer, so it doesn't contain any logic anymore. And you now have the create heroes method, and you can simply write a unit test for this method. It's synchronous. That means no async call. It's independent of the file system. It's getting a heroes list and it's returning a hero Q. It's of course a very simplified example, but you have an input and an output and you can easily test it. So this is, you have to say, this is the power of the humble object pattern. You have the sum service on the one side, which is now a thin adapter layer. And on the other side, you have the hero creator handler, which contains all the business logic. And the business logic is now extracted from the untestable component, and you increase the testability of your app in this case. So yeah, pretty simple example, but also a very powerful pattern. So that's it. This is one way to achieve higher testability in your app and to minimize untestable code. Of course, there are many more ways to achieve that, which I will also talk about in future videos. But for now, if you enjoyed it, hit the like button and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. And see you in the next one.